designed to be helpful to anyone who finds themselves in a programming role, whether that is as an owner booker, a dedicated talent buyer, or even a promoter working with small venues. You're going to hear about tools and strategies to help find, negotiate, and produce more successful shows. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today. Over a 40-year career, Bruce Houghton has served as a talent buyer for multiple venues and is the founder of the Skyline Artist Agency. He is currently senior advisor to concert discovery platform Bands in Town. I'm sure you're aware of it. He is the editor of music industry blog HypeBot, and he is also the author and instructor of the renowned Berklee College of Music's Touring 101 online course. Bruce, we're thrilled to have you here with us today, and welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Kat and Sarah, and thanks, everybody, for coming. So let me just take a second and share my screen, and we will get started. Hang on. All right. Can everybody let me know? Somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen. Yes, no, maybe.
Looks good, Bruce.
Okay, good. All right. So one more thing, I just want to add the chat. So if you have questions, Sarah's going to hit me with questions at the end. But if you have questions along the way, I will try and answer them if appropriate. So in the chat, just so that I can move things a little left or right, depending on your venues and your needs. If you want to put in your venue, your role, like what you do at the venue and your location, venue capacity is kind of helpful to me. And then a booking challenge or two, something you're trying to overcome or hope you're going to learn today. And let's just, hang on. There we go. So I won't repeat all this except to say a couple things. One is Skyline Artist was around for 37 years. At our peak in just pre-pandemic, we were booking about 1,800 dates a year. But in full disclosure, I've shut it down over the last year so that I can semi-retire, if you will, from that portion of it and move the artists to other agencies. I do a lot of work for bands in town and have now for five years since they bought HypeBot in 2009. No, sorry, 2019. And I'll use them several times as an example or a tool to use. And everything that I mention is free. So there are other ways to do it and do some of the things that I'm going to suggest, but that's the one I'm most familiar with. And then last but not least, in the Berklee College of Music part, I saw that several of you that signed up, I'm not sure if any of you that are on, but it signed up were artists. And I teach Touring 101 for Berklee, but Berklee also created a Coursera course, which is 100% free, called Touring 101 for musicians. So as much as I think you'll probably get something out of this, you might find that of interest if you're on the musician side of things. So it's Coursera Touring 101 for musicians, and it's free. All right, so I just asked you to do this already, share in the chat, which I see some of you are, including John Pence, who's going to get used as an example several times. Hang on, what am I doing here? All right, so I think it's important to acknowledge that booking small venues, or any venue really, honestly, independent venue, is harder than ever. Costs are harder, or higher rather, inflation, et cetera. And it's important to understand that they're higher for venues and for artists as well. That touring costs are higher, your employee costs are higher. It just goes on and on. But I think it's important always to understand that it works on both sides. So it's not as if the artist can say to the venue, "Oh, just pay me more because my hotel rooms are more expensive," or it's not as if you can say, "Play for less because their expenses are more expensive or your expenses are more expensive." So it's also important I think, to acknowledge that there's increased competition. I see in Bands in Town a market increase from 2019 in the number of shows, and particularly an increase in the number of large shows. And by that, I mean sort of stadium arena, 6,500 seats and up is actually a number we use internally. And that means that because of those more big shows and because of higher ticket prices overall and even higher ticket resale or secondary ticket sales, that dollars are being sucked out of the marketplace that sometimes would go to you. So if somebody spent $200 to go see their favorite band, that may be $10, $20 shows they can't go to. It's never a direct correlation, but it's certainly a concern for all of us. So I just want to go into it acknowledging that it's harder than ever. But I think that small venues can win more often by doing three things, and we'll delve into these. They're sort of vague in this list, but we'll get very specific about them. One is to be strategic. The second is to be professional and user friendly. And a lot of this second one I learned from being both a talent buyer, but also from the agent side. Like, what did I enjoy? What did I respond to? What made me want to work with that venue? And then the third is to be creative. Um, so on the first one, in terms of being strategic, we'll start with how to find the right artist to book at your venue. And I think there are two approaches with this. One is, I apologize, by the way, the notes are on a screen in front of me and you're on my screen to the left. So if I'm going back and forth, I apologize. Um, but I think there are two approaches to finding the right artist to book at your venue. One is artist first, and the other is venue first. So let's talk about the artist first approach. One may be better than the other, but let's face it, most of us use both. One is I want this band to play my venue. Why can't they or can they? So you or you're looking for more artists to play your venue. So you research artists that you want to play your room. And you research two things, or you should be researching two things. What size rooms do they play? So you know that you're not trying to punch way above your weight. If you're a 200 seat room and they're playing 300 seat rooms and you're in a secondary market where you can charge a higher ticket price, perhaps, you've got a fighting chance. But if they're playing 1,000 seat rooms, you're just wasting your time. And then the second is, how often do they play in your region? I have one of my favorite artists is a singer songwriter named John Fulbright. He almost never seems to leave Oklahoma. So however many times I bother their agent, she always tells me he's not coming to your area. So I would recommend researching those two things, and that will help you decide um, whether or not it's appropriate for you to chase these artists. One of the ways to research these artists, and here's my first Bands of Town example, is to use Bands of Town. There's also Songkick as another, but I'll show you one more thing about Bands of Town. Now, this is free. You don't even have to sign up for an account to use this tool. And that is, at the top arrow, search for the artist. At the third arrow, if once you find the artist, you'll see the places they're playing. What's unique about Bands in Town is that they have this past tour date tab. And if you hit the past tour dates, which I did actually here, you can see places that Chris Matthews, who's this fabulous singer-songwriter, played last month. And if you hit at the bottom, the fourth tab rather, hitting show more dates, you can go back in her schedule for as long as she has been posting dates on Bands of Town, which for most artists is many years. You might not want to go past pre-pandemic, so I tend to research 2023 and forward because venues changed a lot after the pandemic. But this is a great way to say, oh, okay, Chris is playing rooms like mine in markets like mine. Now, every artist has one or two big markets, so don't let that dissuade you. But if you consistently see that you're in the Pacific Northwest, and the bands that you're or artists that you're looking for playing the hybrid or the cafe or artichoke, then those are the kind of artists that you want to chase. You might want to also, and just to go up near the top again, follow the artist. That's entirely up to you. You will have to create a free account, but at that point, you'll get notified whenever the artist announces new tours. That may allow you to be informed about a tour in your area, or just serve as a reminder that this is an artist that you're thinking about. Let me just go back to this again. two sort of tips that I would add to this, to your artist research. One is to ask the appropriate local radio stations to add you to their weekly music emails. Most radio stations say that most radio stations, and if I see a couple of you from Roanoke, like WNRN in Roanoke or in Charlottesville, actually, sends a weekly email to record companies about artists that they've added to the radio station. Also, in that email will be kind of a rotation, in heavy rotation, light rotation, et cetera. Just by looking at those emails every week, you can get an idea sometimes of new artists that you need to begin to track. Sometimes they're local and regional, sometimes they're national, but you can get an idea of what's happening on a radio station that might eventually be a media partner. But I honestly use it as a way to just track the things that I need to pay attention to. And then I use the past artist tab. We already talked about that. So let me just take 1 second and look at the questions. Great group of people. It's just fabulous, wonderfully diverse. All right, I'm going to keep going. All right. So that was the artist first approach. The second one is what I'll call the venue first approach, and that is to research which artists are playing similar venues. So what I recommend doing with this is picking, 4, 5, 6, whatever you've got the time for, venues that have similar capacities, similar missions in music, preferably in my mind are in your region, because one of the things would suggest is partnering, not even partnering, just developing a relationship, an email thread with 3 or 4 or 5 venues in your region that are not directly competitive to you, so outside of whatever you consider your radius clause, and tracking what they're playing, but also talking to them about saying, hey, I'm going to make an offer for this artist. Do you want to as well? Or can you let me know when something's coming through? And you'd be surprised how effective that is to do. So you may want to make the venues that you're tracking in similar markets. By that, I mean similar size markets. I only say that because you may be, if you're in a tertiary or secondary market, you may be able to get artists that are playing bigger venues, somewhat bigger venues. Let's say you're 200 seats, they might be playing 400 seats in Washington, D.C. or in New York or in a bigger market, whatever your local bigger market is or regional bigger market is. So you might want to track venues that are in, bad spelling there, sorry, similar markets and similar capacities. So hopefully that made sense. You can follow those venues on Bandsintown. So I can't remember if I did this. Yes, there we go. So I see John Pence from the Spot on Kirk is on the call. And before John was there, when the venue was still in its infancy, I helped them with their booking. But John is very capable of doing it without me now. But in any case, so you can search for a venue in Bandsintown, again, free. And you can follow that venue if you want to look at what's happening in the venue. But what you're trying to do here is to look at their upcoming shows. Unfortunately, there is not a past tour dates tab for venues on Bandsintown. But if you establish relationships with them, you may be able to ask them questions. So one more thing I would just suggest, and all of these slides are going to be sent to you afterwards, and I apologize if I sound like I'm shilling for Bandsintown here, but again, it's all free, is that I'd recommend claiming your venue page on Bandsintown, and this link, which will be in the slides that you get, tells you how to do that. What that just means is that you can make a few changes, add the address, usually add a logo, just sort of check the accuracy of the venue on Bandsintown, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Bruce,
Yeah.
just to stop you for a second,
Yeah.
and I'm going to read these out, but you can address them later if they're not relevant for this one. But I scrolled all the way up to the top, and Bradley from Jamie's House of Music in Lansdowne, Pennsylvania, hi Bradley, had some pretty good questions that he posed right before everybody started sharing their location. He's got three in particular, which I'm just going to throw at you, and we can address these
Yeah,
later if necessary. The first one was, what are other good show nights beyond Thursday to Sunday?
that's a great question. Honestly, I would say Monday's always a bad night every venue, but I know many venues that have developed, the exception might be if it's a Monday holiday. But I know many venues that have developed Tuesday or Wednesday. So my simple answer to that is any night can be a good night if the audience is used to the fact that you do shows. And one of the things I teach the students at Berkeley, or I learned as an agent, was that sometimes there's so much competition on Friday and Saturday night, small venue, that's not the best night of the week. Let me just see if I can see your other question. Oh, go ahead.
That's another, yeah, that's actually related to his next question is, and it's interesting you were talking about making connections and communicating with other venues. He asks, is nearby competition a problem for other small venues? Is it
Yeah,
a benefit or a
well, I
competition
mean, I think
situation?
it's a problem. It's an obstacle to overcome. I would recommend to you that it's another great reason to develop those relationships. So, if you can learn to talk to the venues, to have a good relationship with the venues that are important, that are you view as your competition, then you can often have conversation with them. And everybody's different, so this will not always work. But I've found that if you say to somebody, "I've got an Americana," do you have an Americana show on this night of the week on July 3rd? You know, the other venue, if they're smart, will try not to book an Americana show on that night of the week because there's only so many Americana fans in your market and who wants to compete. So I know that one thing that's worked for me repeatedly is to say, this is very important to me. I'm spending a lot of money. It's our anniversary. It's whatever. And usually venues will honor that as well. But overall, I think it's about trying to develop communication. So yeah, it's great. More venues in a market develop a vibrant scene of local musicians, but in every other way, it can be competition.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
open communication is kind of a great thing to do in general in life, but
Yeah.
it's good to hear that how it's relevant in this particular instance. And then his third question is it easier to be recognized or to become recognized, I think, as a particular type of music venue, or better to have varied music, eclectic
Um,
music?
Yeah, I mean, my response to that is that unless you're in a big market where you can be just a blues club or just a jazz club, or you're happy with only being open a couple nights a week, you can survive at that. That it's probably the case that you can't survive on a single genre. Using the Spot as an example, it's 110 seats. It's in Roanoke, Virginia, which is 100,000 people, 200,000 metro. And when John took over, it was primarily an Americana music venue, which frankly, my fault. It's what I knew, and he's done a great job of varying it because the Americana fans will come to the Spot 3 times a month. They won't come at 3 times a week. So hip hop and metal and all kinds of things are happening. So unless you're an established venue in a big market, I would say you've got to go beyond a single genre.
Okay, that's it. And if anybody else has anything to add to that, feel free. There's a lot. I'm looking at the list of participants. There's a lot of great experience here.
Yeah.
But those are the three questions that we have so far. So carry
And those are
on.
great. Those are fabulous questions. Uh, Great questions. Um, all right. So I talked about how to research venues, use a research to find the right artists, and you're either looking at the artists that you're interested in, or you find through the radio stations, you're finding in other ways, and it's really and not or. You're researching what artists are doing well in other venues like you, perhaps in your region, or certainly of your size and style. Um, it is also imperative, and I'll talk about this at the end, but to look at developing local talent, developing other things that can make money or at least be reasonably successful in a venue beyond just looking at the touring artists. But we'll talk about that near the end. So the next part of this is you figure out the artists that you want to work with or that you're hoping to work with, and you've got to make contact. Honestly, there are all kinds of directories. You can pay for Polestar and Celebrity Access. Nothing is more accurate than the artist webpage. Almost every artist has a contact information on their webpage. That will usually, hopefully, and it's more accurate, I think, than any directory. That will usually point you to the appropriate person for booking. Usually, there's either a general contact, and often there's a booking contact. That person could be the artist themselves, they could be the artist manager, they could be an agent. This is the pecking order, and or order of priorities, and I recommend to you not to vary from it if you can. In other words, if there is an agent, go to the agent. If there is no agent but the manager, go to the manager. If there is no agent or manager, feel free to go straight to the artist. Doing anything else other than that in that order runs the risk of upsetting for example, the agent. Is it right? Is it fair? Should we care? We shouldn't. Honestly, a date is a date. It should come from wherever it comes from. Talk to anybody you want to. But the reality is that if, let's say, I'm the agent or the manager doing the booking, I'm under pressure to get the artist the best dates possible. Anytime somebody gets in the middle of that or is perceived to get in the middle of that or getting there before I do, it feels bad to me. So work hard at trying to push trying to start with the agent or the manager if there is no agent. If in fact, if you believe strongly that the artist is right for your room, in other words, playing similar venues in similar markets, you should be able to afford them. They should be good for your room, and you're getting absolutely nowhere with the manager, or the manager to the artist. I would recommend, and this is sort of a last ditch, if you will. Don't do this first. Reaching out to, let's say, you can't get the agent. Reach out to the manager and say, I am so and so. We'll talk about how to approach. I'm very interested in booking this artist. Am I correct that so and so is still your agent? At that point, you're not dissing the other agent. You're not saying, oh, I've been emailing him 52 times and he's not getting back to me. You're not doing anything like that, but you're reaching out to someone else in the artist organization who then may motivate something happening. But where possible, start with the agent. Once you're when you make contact, the importance is to be brief, and we'll talk about an example of this in just one second. And then to be persistent, but always remain polite. And sometimes you're just going to have to give up. They're not responsive for some reason. In my view, and the agents that I've taught, the 15 or so agents I've taught over the years, I used to say, just respond. Just say, no, I'm sorry, we're not coming your way. Reach out to me in a few months. No, we already have a venue in town. No, no, thanks, but no thanks. Anything so that you know that they got your email. But agents don't always do that. I could tell you they're busy. I could tell you all kinds of things. But, sometimes you just need to walk away and then try again another day, because you honestly don't know what's going on in their world as well. Let's see, hang on one second. So when you reach out, and almost always it's going to be via email, this is a recommendation. And again, this will be in the slides that you get, of a simple email that I think accomplishes what you needed to accomplish. I'll go through it real quickly because we're already halfway through. Booking, subject line, very clear. This is what I'm interested in. Book Chris Matthews. I'm reaching out about booking Chris Matthews at this, and then you're telling them very quickly, it's 110 capacity. I like to say nonprofit listening room for the spot. I used to say that. But that line could change. If you're trying to reach out to a jam band, it might not be a listening room anymore, because most of our rooms can configure in a couple different ways. But I always like to say nonprofit, just tug at the heartstrings a little bit. Name of the venue, city. I try to establish a little bit about the staying power of the venue, the importance of the venue, the quality of the venue. And you may do it in other ways. If you've been around for 27 years, that might be what you want to tell them. In this case, this is the way I would do it. Grammy winner Cedric Burnside, Focalized 2025 Artist of the Year, Chris Matthews, and recent NPR Song of the Day artist Dylan Dent. So what I'm saying is quality artists play this venue. Is Chris Matthews planning any dates on a region? If so, what is the ask, or what are you charging? But the ask is sort of the insider term for a routed date. You're not just trying to fly her in for your festival, a routed date in a small venue like ours. Again, I try and establish the fact that, we're not a big venue. I look forward to doing business together, and please keep us in mind for the other artists on your great roster. Throw a little bit of, compliment there. Also try and establish a long-term relationship. And then for more info, there's the link right to the venue right there, so I don't have to do anything. So I keep something like this on my desktop as a template. And if I were you, I'd do the same. Create your own. If it was an artist, I would call it a pitch. So maybe it's your pitch, your venue pitch, your reach out pitch. And then use it over and over again, changing it ever so slightly. Like you might change the artist. If John was trying to book a jam band, he might say, lettuce and whatever. I can't remember what the bands that played the venue. All right. Second to being professional and user friendly. Before you make the offer, create these kinds of sheets that you're going to use over and over again. You're going to be given at the end of this and then also in the email that goes out afterwards, and in my last slide, a link, or actually Sarah can put in now if she wants, a link to a Google folder that you have access to that has examples of each of these. Some of them are from the spot, some are for other venues that I just thought did a great job. But the first one you're going to create is a venue technical specification sheet. You basically want to tell them all of the things about the tech in the venue. Is it seated or standing? Maybe you don't want it because you've got different configurations, or maybe you want to list your various configurations. Stage size, capacity, sound, lights, and monitors, backline if you've got any. Maybe you have a piano, maybe you don't. Anything that sets you apart, good or bad. And I say good or bad and say do all of this in advance because it's important to establish early on who you are and what you can do. There's sort of nothing worse than booking or getting close to booking a band, and then suddenly you realize that you've got a 12-channel PA and they need a 24, that you've got 2 monitors and they need 8 because they're an 8-piece band, that they demand a bigger stage than you can ever provide. And then you've wasted your time, you've wasted the agent's time, you've wasted the artist manager's time, and it's a bad taste in everyone's mouth. It's why I recommend very strongly having this venue technical spec sheet and then sending it out every time you make an offer. I also send it again when the offer is accepted, and I send it again when I get the contact information for the artist or the tour manager or whoever it is that's actually handling the tech. But all of that is easy because I created this document and I use it over and over again. I also recommend creating a special offer sheet. There's an example of that in the lesson, or in the lesson, sorry, in the Google folder. And it basically, half of it is pre-filled out. It's the venue address, it's the capacity, it's the standard fee that you pull out every time for ASCAP and BMI, whatever it is that are those, and it'll make your job so much easier. A couple of you asked how to save time. The offer sheet that's the example is actually from a system called Prism. Sorry, I should have checked how expensive it is, but it's a venue and artist booking platform, a venue and agent booking platform that is, available to small venues and small agencies. So I don't think it's terribly expensive, but has a professional offer sheet. And it might be a solution for you that would save money. It keeps all of your offers in one place, et cetera. But there are certainly other ways to do it. You can create an Excel, et cetera. And the other thing you want to do before you make an offer is to research what else is happening within your radius clause in that week or month. Because this is about having successful shows for you and for the artists. And it is important that you set yourself up for success by not having too much competition. Again, and I apologize, Bands of Town, you could certainly do this elsewhere, but this Bands in Town has the largest database. 675,000 artists use it, and so it tends to have the most accurate. But anyway, you can go on Bands in Town. You can set your location. This is a little different than some of the other searches. So you set your location up here, or it could you set a time frame. In this case, this month, or you can we should probably choose dates because you're booking 3 months out or whatever it might be. And then it will and you might want to search by venue. Sorry, by genre, if you were a blues club or a jazz club. I actually don't recommend that strongly because artists set what their genre is, and they tend to, want to be vague. So I would recommend just not setting a genre and just searching for everything that's playing in that time frame in your market. Sorry. So again, you're putting together an offer sheet. You're putting together a technical specification sheet that is everything about your venue and your tech, and you're researching that there are not a lot of conflicts. Then you're going to make your offer. Several of you asked questions about deal structures. I could teach a whole separate course on that, but again, this Google folder that you're going to get access to is a 3-page PDF that I actually created for the artists that I teach in the 12-week college course for Berkeley, that tells them how to negotiate various deal structures. So guarantees, door deals, guarantee versus, guarantee plus, various kinds of things. Might want to take some time with that if that's an issue for you, or you might want to just take a look at it, even if you're more experienced, to see if you're missing something. But that is a place that I would start. Here's the rest of it. Start with that short summary email that I talked about. Use the professional venue sheet, attach the venue and tech sheet. Make your best offer. People often ask me this, should I start low because the agent's going to want to negotiate with me anyway? My recommendation to you is, if you're a small venue or in a competitive market, or really under most circumstances, if you want the artist, make an offer that you're comfortable with. Maybe it's not your top offer. Maybe it's a little below that, but not way below that, because this is not a game of I got it for as cheap as I could. It's a game of getting successful outcomes. So if you've determined that this is a good artist for your venue, offer what you think is fair, what you're comfortable offering. And then, the agent can always come back and ask for more, but start at a place you're comfortable. Don't start at a place, don't try and lowball. Now that may be my agent's perspective, but I think it's accurate. Look at ways that you can make the deal better. Can you reduce or waive your merch fees, for example? Have you been successful with VIPs in your venue, and do you charge for them? So, hey, I'm going to do a door deal, or I'm going to do a guarantee versus a percentage. I know we're only a 200-seat venue, but my experience is that I can take the 20 front row seats and we can get double the price. That'll double your gross. So it could be VIP, it could be premium seating, it could be all kinds of things. So what can you do to make your venue the best offer you can? Maybe there are other things like, for a while, the hotel changed ownership, but for a while the Spot on Kirk and I've booked half a dozen other venues over my career, but that's the most recent one, the one that I think about all the time. But we had to deal with a Holiday Inn, perfectly good, recently for $75. Now, that was a deal that the Spot on Kirk had. All you had to do was say you were an artist playing the Spot on Kirk. Sometimes that helped get us the deal, because that was maybe half of what they had budgeted for hotel rooms. Another thing to do to make your offer uh, more compatible or more likely to succeed is to be date flexible. And that is to say, I can do this date, this is, not locking into a single date. You would love to get a Friday or Saturday, so you may make an offer, and this is something that I don't think venues do often enough or agents ask for often enough, and that is an offer that's contingent on the day of the week. So if, for example, if the artist could sell out your venue on any night of the week, well, then you don't need to do that. But if you're much more comfortable offering a little more on the Friday or Saturday or whatever the night may be, then you might look at the making an offer that says, I'll pay you $750 on Friday or Saturday, but and versus blah, 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 but I can only pay you $500 on Thursday and Sunday, just using that as an example. Some agents will appreciate that, some agents won't, but if it's a fact, it's a fact. And of course, you're always trying to create a situation where if they do well, then make more money. So there's bonuses or percentages or back in. So don't be afraid to make that kind of contingent offer, if you will. It both provides an incentive for them to get the better night of the week, do the better night because you're paying them more, but it also gives you flexibility, or them flexibility, agent flexibility is when he's running the tour to help you get the date. You also want to do holds, or let's assume you don't know what holds are, and I'll try and do that really quick. Maybe I won't. Holds are basically, I will hold this date for you. You are the first artist in line. That is a H1, hold one, or you're the third artist in line. That's H3. Hold etiquette basically says that you are, if you're H3 and you call me back and go, I want that date, I am obligated to call the artists or the agents on H2 and H1, hold one and O2, and give each of them 24 hours to say, yes, I want the date. If both of them say no, you've got the date. And that's what happens more often than not. But just know that that's something you want to do. You want to try and be flexible, but try not to let the artist give you, the agent, whether or manager, put 9 dates on hold. If you've got a calendar that's filling up, but know that that's something, again, that you can do to be date flexible, to be flexible in general, to be user friendly. Include how you would market the show, standard and special marketing plans. So you've done other other sessions on marketing, and one or more of them I think is on YouTube. And I'd recommend, Live Music Society has. I'd recommend looking at that. Actually, one of them was done by a friend of mine, Bruce Bryan. But I would recommend to each of you that you create a very standard marketing plan with the 4 or 5 things that you do. You spend $75 on Facebook, whatever. But if you really, and you include that in your venue sheet or in your offer, because it shows, when you do that, it shows that you do actually try to market the show. If the show means a lot to you, or you're spending a lot of money, you might want to put together a special marketing plan. All of these things as a venue, as an agent or a manager or an artist, make me say, this person is professional, this person is flexible, this person is easy to deal with, and this person will be a partner in my success. In other words, they are not just going to book the show and forget about it or take it entirely as my responsibility to sell tickets. They're going to help me grow, sell tickets, and grow as an artist. The more that you can do that, the more likely you are to get the show. And then there's venue location and radius clause. You want to look at routing opportunities, which we talked about. You may want to repeat your venue strengths when you make the offer, i.e., I am perfectly routed between, I see you're playing in Washington. I'm perfectly routed where the artist lives in Nashville and Washington. You're going to drive right past us. I see you're playing a festival. I know their radius clause is 250. I'm at 260 miles. I'm at 240 miles, and they always say yes. So in other words, use that radius clause if you can as a strength. And then, of course, be flexible on the offer deadline, but have a deadline. So in other words, establish with the agent, manager, artist, when you make the offer, when you they reasonably expect to get an offer and put that on there. So in other words, my deadline for my offer is 4 weeks. Not my deadline for the offer is a week, unless you have no choice. That's not flexible. Give them as much time as you can, but give them a deadline. So let me just look real quick. Oh, great. Kat's asking about Prism because it's something that we have, all of us, I think, have been looking at a lot, and I know a lot of agents have as well. So make your offer and increase your chances using these things. Also, on make your offer, and I've just sort of continue this, is I mentioned this. Can you be a partner in the artist's success? Are you showing that with your marketing plan? Can you, when you make the offer, tie in a radio station or media partner? I've already talked to WNRN. I know they're playing your music, and they said that they will help market the show if it happens. If I'm an agent, I'm a manager, that excites me because it means that I'm going to get more play on the radio station, for example. There isn't always a radio station. It might just be a college station. Anything that you might be a great heavy metal blogger in your market. They're going to give away tickets. They're going to help me promote, etc. And then can you grow with the artist? And this is, maybe you have access to a larger venue. Maybe your venue has multiple rooms. Maybe you can show in some way that you can be a long-term partner in the artist's success. Because again, as an agent, manager, artist, we're always looking for those people that will help us get to the next level, and hopefully we can continue to work with them. Another is to make the show an event when you make the offer. In other words, this is a holiday show. This is the venue's anniversary. I know it's an album release. We'll turn it into that. I've partnered with the cool record store around the corner, whatever it is you can do to make the show an event, because again, it shows that you're going the extra mile. And sometimes you can tie the date with another festival, another event, festival pre-show. You're on your way to this festival or outside of the radius clause, but a lot of people from our venue drive to festival X, or you're on the way back from the festival. Do you want to do an after party? Those are just examples of tying it to another event. After the date is confirmed, immediately make contact with the manager and the artist team and share the venue and tech. I'm trying to go quick here because we're running out of time. Venue and tech spec sheet, your marketing plan again, your press list, your venue staff contact info, and set up ticket counts. So you want to make sure that you share this information, not just with the agent, which you should, but also with the manager or tour manager or marketing person or whatever contacts you get that are appropriate, because you cannot be guaranteed that the agent will forward all of this information. And you need to make sure that it gets directly in the hands of the artist. All this shows that you're professional. All this means it's more likely you'll have a positive outcome. And then I recommend doing it again 3 or 4 weeks before the show. As an agency, we did this, but most agencies don't. You want to, as a venue, again, send this stuff out again, or at least send an email saying, I sent you this, do you need it again, etc. All of this is attempt to build a relationship with that agent, with that manager, with that artist, that will make them want to come back and play your venue again. And the most important thing is to be responsive. When they have a question, when they have a concern, when they have an idea, reach out, come back to them. Even if you don't know the answer, even if the answer is bad, just do it, because there's nothing worse than sitting at the other end of this as the manager, as the agent, as the artist, and not knowing what's going on. After the show plays, share your final ticket sales, your gross, and dollars paid to the artist. In the doc, or in that folder, is a sample ticket count form and a sample, and that also becomes a show settlement or something that you send to the end. The agent wants to know, the manager wants to know, and send them to both, how the show did, how much the artist made. There's some other fields in as well. And then say thank you. This is, well, in my opinion, the most underutilized thing in the business. I have of the 20 artists that I personally represent, it's more like a dozen that I personally represented, let's say over the last 3 or 4 years that I did all of their booking. I only had 2 that would say thank you. And the venues loved it. I even had my favorite email was, I didn't really make money, but they were so wonderful that I want to have them back anyway. So the fact that that artist, the lead singer of the band in one case, sent this email was, so do the same in reverse. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry it didn't work out, but I want to do more with you. I can't wait to have you back, whatever it is. And again, always ask for more. I want you to come back. Dear agent, do you have anything else like that that you can sell me? Please always keep me in mind. Just a couple bonus booking ideas, and we'll get quickly to questions. It's important, I think, to develop local headliners. You cannot survive just on bringing in national talent from the outside. You also, I think, have a responsibility to music in general and to your scenes to try and do that. So that you do that by giving them openers, by putting them on special events, by booking them on the right nights of the week. Just you need to do that as much as you can. It will also help you because when you look ahead and you're 3 weeks out and you've got a Saturday night, you know that you can pick up the phone and the odds are reasonable that one of these 4 artists that you helped develop will be available and you can come to a show and fill your night. Also think out of the box. We talked about genres before, but also things like theme nights. I'm putting together or looking at doing a chart for NEVA of artists that play NEVA venues. And I was amazed at the number of theme nights, some touring and some local, like Gimme Gimme Disco, emo nights, 80s nights, 90 nights, that 90s nights that venues use to fill their schedule. Some of them do touring versions of it. Some of them create their own, but it's something to think about. Open mic. I just found out about what open tables were actually when I was doing a little work for Live Music Society. And that's DJ nights that are like open mics. And sometimes rappers come and play in front, singing or rap in front of tracks. Sometimes it's just DJ spinning. Comedy, film, all kinds of different things you do. So don't rely just on this traditional booking stuff. Go beyond that. Be creative. So again, to recap, be strategic, be professional, be creative. And those are those highlights, and you'll get these, so I won't put you through it again. So let me take a look at some questions, or Sarah, if you want to jump, or Kat, come
Yeah,
back and
thanks so
ask me.
much, Bruce. That was such a great presentation. Again, I'll share all of this info with everybody who joined us today in a follow-up email. We have a quick question in the Q&A. Someone wanted
Okay.
to know, once they register on bands in town, will they be able to post featured bands?
No, the dates on bands in town come from primarily from artists, and I would recommend, or they come in a feed from your ticketing company. And we have feeds from almost every ticket company, of even Eventbrite and some of these, certainly all the bigger ones. But I think there are, last time I looked, 83 American ticket companies that we got feeds from. But the most reliable way to do it is to make sure that the artist posts. That also means, by the way, that if the artist posts, that we'll post it to Spotify, YouTube, which hasn't even been publicly announced yet, and other places.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, so something that you may want to communicate, in advance or something with the artist.
Yes, correct.
Gotcha.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from this presentation, Bruce, helping me in my side hustle as a programmer. I As we've recently launched a touring project with artists, our question is like, how far out? Like, what's the ideal timeline? The work back timeline from first reaching out. When do you give up? When's the point where you're like, okay, this isn't going to work out. I'm going to my hold number 3. And then how long do you really need to give artists, agents? Is there a magic 3 months, 2 months,
Yeah, no, I
a
mean, I
year?
would, yeah, I mean, from an agent's point of view, we were always trying to book 3 to 6 months out, only because that meant that I had a good idea of what the artist had going in terms of releases and other opportunities. I think from a venue point of view, you just want, when you find an artist that you're interested in, you want to reach out right then. And then you want to check back every couple of months or something to see what's going on. And if you're tracking other venues and tracking those artists, you may get a notification, ooh, they're going out on tour, or they're playing 200 miles from me or whatever might be appropriate. As far as how much time to give the agent, I think 3 weeks to a month is a fair time. I think a week is too little time, but that's my agent point of view. You've got to know in other words, from the point that you give them the offer to when they say yes. You might want to give, or no, you might want to give them about 3 weeks to a month.
Are you a
And you
fan
put
of
that deadline on, huh?
yeah. Are you a fan of like expiration dates, deadlines for like,
Yeah, I
okay, you
always
need
put
to.
an expiration date, but I also believe that it's totally fine when somebody goes, "Hey, I'm reminding you your offer is about to expire." If it, like as an agent, I'd get an email, "My offer is about to expire next Tuesday, but if you think it's worth it, I can give you an extra 5 days or something like that." And I would say, if I'm an honest agent, which I tried to be, I would say, you know, no, to be honest with you, I don't think it's going to work out, or let's just hold the Wednesday because I just got the Thursday, or I'll get you an answer by Thursday. So, in other words, it's an opportunity for the person on the other end to give you some feedback. But I am a fan of deadlines.
Great. I have to say the chat has been super amazing, and there's lots of other literally insights as a platform, which is news to me. I don't know about insights.
Yeah, and open
We've been
date,
yeah,
somebody, or was it open? So it is.
open date. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
okay. Somebody suggested that. I have not dug into the platform, but I've attended some of their webinars and looked at the website, and it's certainly an open platform worth looking at. They provide some marketing tools, which I'm quite. I think your ticketing platform and or your booking platform should provide you with some um, marketing, some things to make your marketing easier. Let's put it that way. I'd be looking for that.
Hmm. Yeah, that's it's a bit of a conversation that's already going on in the chat, but it's something that we got a few questions on the registration form too, is just do you have any tips for staying organized if you're not using any of these platforms and just keeping things tidy and manageable on the back end?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. One was to create all of those forms that I talked about, the tech and et cetera, so that when I wanted to do something, make an offer or send out, I didn't even mention one of the other forms in there is to create a press list, like all the media contacts. Some
Mm.
venues hate sharing that, but I always believed in sharing it because I want to make it as easy as possible for them to market the show. So I would create all of these things so that whenever anybody asked me anything or I wanted to do anything, I could do it quickly. And then I very simply just created a folder of all of my outstanding offers and pulled them out when I didn't. And I created a Google Calendar of, the offers that I had made on the dates that I had made it, and with, first hold, second hold, whatever it might be. So, and I'm talking about from a booking point of view.
Mhm.
Sorry, from the venue point of view. Sorry. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Before
Okay.
we say goodbye, there's
Yeah.
a lot of really great venues. We recognize a lot of the venues in the chat. Thank you everyone for joining us. If you have anything that you'd like to share, please do. Getting people's first person experience on, this is what I use, this is how I do it. And it's clear that people stay managed and organized. But I have to say, Bruce, you sharing this information sometimes, I know when I was coming up as a talent buyer booker, I just was like so keen. How do you do it? Like, what are you doing? Like, what have you failed at? So it's always really great to see how other people do it. And there's no one way, right? This is great. Some great advice you've thrown at us. And I love the being polite. That's being polite and open communication work in every field known to man. And I think if nobody has anything to add, I see a few little recommendations coming up. As we said, Sarah's going to send out this amazing group of boilerplate templates, just tools, so that people can stay organized. If anyone using Excel and Google, more power to you, but it does feel like there's more technology becoming affordable. And for the venues in our network, the under 300 cap, that's the balance to find something that works that isn't too expensive. Everything's expensive. And I will say that I really appreciated what you said about accommodation. Artist accommodation is such a touch point. It's one of the biggest expenses, and finding affordable accommodation on the artist side has become very challenging. We've seen venues that are literally building their own, creating their own spaces for artists to stay. Otherwise, they can't have touring artists come to their venue, and they need to host touring artists. They need to bring new people into their venues. So really interesting to see what relationships people can build with hotels. So this is your last chance, everyone, to ask a quick question. But it is actually 3:01. So I think,
I'll also say my email address is on this last slide, and I don't, 2 weeks from now, you think of something, anybody on this webinar, just hit me up. Might take me a day or two, but I'm happy to answer a question.
Well, in the spirit of professional politesse, we would like to thank you, Bruce, for this incredible session, and it will be recorded. We'll post it on our YouTube. We'd also like to thank everybody who participated. I know many of your venues, and the venues that we love, that we're becoming familiar with and getting to know, and it's really great for you to learn about each other too. So keep doing the great work, supporting live music. And feel free to write to us if you've tried some of these things that Bruce suggests, and give us your experience, and keep in touch with us, info@livemusicsociety.org. And I think with that, we will say farewell.
Hopefully we'll see some of you in Milwaukee at NEBA.
Indeed,
All
indeed.
right. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right. Take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.